Gene is often more concerned, and this is just part of his personality, with Gene. And it wasn't going to be to our benefit for him to run off and get involved with something else. Were Van Halen undeniable? Absolutely. Were they fabulous? Yeah. Did they have what it took? Absolutely. But we had to take care of Kiss. And the way to protect Kiss at the time was to pull in the reins on Gene. It's that simple. So, obviously, Paul and Bill Aucoin putting the kibosh on Van Halen in order to protect his own band. What do you make of this, Dave?
Not surprising. Makes a lot of sense. I guess the band feels a little better now, for those members of the band who are still alive, knowing it wasn't because they sucked that they weren't chosen. They were just trying to get Gene to focus on Kiss, because this is 1977, and this is like Kiss at their pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
So they really don't need Gene like going in 18 different directions, so they really just wanted to rein him in, which actually turned out to be a true prophecy, because in the 80s, in the future, Gene started getting into acting and he was doing other things, and he really wasn't focused on Kiss as much. It was tough getting him in the studio, getting him to play bass on tracks or things like that. So when Gene starts spreading his arms around other things, he doesn't necessarily keep his focus on the band. So I think Paul, who probably knows Gene better than almost anybody, knew what he was talking about and was like, Van Halen's great, but it's not for us to start managing them because, dude, you need to focus on this band, not that band.
Yeah, and if you all remember, after that, even a little bit after that, Gene started going into acting, and then he started dating Cher, and he got all distracted in the 80s.
Right.
A lot of Kiss fans complained about Gene's lack of involvement in Kiss because he was so distracted with other things, and, that got Paul upset. But what are you going to do? Paul also mentioned that he poo-pooed the whole thing about, remember the old story about Eddie coming to Gene and wanting to join Kiss? He says that never happened. Now, Gene clearly says that Eddie called him and I said, I need to talk to you. They met across the street at a diner, and he was talking to him and says, David Lee Roth is driving me nuts. I can't fucking take it. I want to leave the band. Can I join Kiss? And he said, you should stay with the band, Eddie. And he persuaded him to stick it out with Roth. He says that's the absolute truth, and Paul denies it. He says that never happened. That was never a situation, but I don't know. I think there's a miscommunication there. Perhaps maybe Gene didn't even bring that up to Paul. I don't know, but there's a little bit of contention there. What do you make of that?
The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah, that's the absolute truth. On to more David Lee Roth news. Nikki Sixx went out promoting his new book, The First 21, which is about his first 21 years before he became the infamous Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. He got asked about Dave again, his offer to have him join the stadium tour if this fucking thing ever happens next summer. I've been holding on to my tickets for years at this point. I think I bought those tickets, I think it was 2019 when I bought those tickets.
Good Lord.
It's unbelievable, because the show was supposed to happen in 2020, then it was supposed to happen in 2021, now it's supposed to happen in 2022. And it's so funny because Def Leppard, who's on the tour, and Phil Collin, who's the guitarist of Def Leppard, Eddie Trunk asked him, what's the chance of this happening? And he goes, 50-50. And he goes, 50-50. I mean, and the funny thing is they sold an inordinate amount of tickets. Like, it was like millions and millions, like a really hot selling tour. Live Nation has just been holding on to that money and cashing in on all the interest. Yeah.
It just amazes me that it's been like 2 years.
I don't know how that's even legal.
At what point don't you have to get the money back at some point? Like, the show hasn't happened in 2 years. Are you really going to hold on to people's money for 3 years before the show happens?
Well, I mean, everybody just goes, oh, COVID, but the funny thing is that there were stadium tours last summer. The Green Day went out with Weezer and Fall Out Boy. That was a stadium tour. Guns N' Roses went out with Mammoth WVH. That was a stadium tour. Dead and Company. That was a stadium tour. I mean, there's stadium tours all over the place. I also want to mention, too, that kind of slipped out, and this came out under the radar. No one is even talking about this, but in the interview with Doc, getting back to the Kiss situation real quick, he noted that it originally was planned that Kiss's last show was going to be at Citi Field, which is formerly Shea Stadium, in Queens in July of 2021. And that got written off, obviously, because of COVID and everything got rescheduled. But Kiss is still going. They've been on this tour. I saw them back in 2019. They toured 2019. They toured partially in 2020, partially in 2021, and now they're touring in 2022. This final tour is going on forever. And they already announced, ready for this, Dave? They just came back from a Kiss cruise. They just came back. They already announced the Kiss cruise for next fall. These guys aren't going anywhere. Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. The one thing I keep reading consistently is how the Kiss tour was a COVID nightmare.
Well, you heard about what happened, right? So Paul Stanley's guitar tech died. And, and they apparently had a very, quote-unquote, tight COVID rules, and that everybody was tested, and everybody had to be vaxxed, and everybody had an ID. Apparently the guy wasn't vaxxed, and he died. And unfortunately, his name was Fran or something like that. Poor guy, he died. Long-time guitar tech for Paul Stanley. And it really sent waves through the whole rock community, because it was like, wait a minute. Because Kiss was known for having a very hardcore lockdown tour. You know?
Apparently it wasn't as locked down as they thought it was, because Paul and Gene got it and did not go well.
It's true. Back to Nikki Sixx. So Nikki Sixx, when they asked him about David Lee Roth, reaching out to Roth, who he wanted to have on the tour, apparently was in the Poison slot. You know what I mean? Before they asked Poison, it was Def Leppard, Motley Crue, and they were going to ask Dave to add to that list. And Dave declined, saying, I don't open for bands I influenced. So then Nikki said, well, yeah, he probably influenced everybody on that tour. He says, that band is a monster, meaning Van Halen. But you know, understandably, we all get to make our choices and stuff. I just thought the body of work that he has with a lot of people could really be exciting. But I understand his position as well. So he was cool about it, and he understood. But interesting that that was an offer that he turned down. I mean, that would have been probably the biggest audience Dave ever played to, solo. I mean, that you're talking like stadiums. Dave never played stadiums. So, I mean, that would have been real massive exposure. What do you think, Dave? Do you think he should have taken it, or you think he should have passed on it?
I think he should have went on the tour. It would have been great.
I agree.
It would have been part of a huge tour. And, you know, screw that you're on tour with people you influenced. I mean, so what? I mean, you were still part of that musical time. So swallow your pride, suck it up. It's a great opportunity for you. Just do it, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is where I think all the sense comes in. It's not like Van Halen is opening for Motley Crue and Def Leppard. Okay, it's not like Eddie, Mike, Alex, and Dave are like, all right, I guess we'll go. That's not the same thing. Dave's solo is totally different than Van Halen opening for them. So I understand where he's coming from a pride standpoint, but man, talk about exposure. I mean, that is exposure. That is a massive, massive tour. No one even thought it would sell the way it did, and they started even adding dates onto it. This tour sold so well that no one gave their money back. I mean, this is how anticipated.
But that's wrong, because like if you haven't got on the tour yet after 2 years, you should be giving the money back.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, come on.
I agree.
I mean,
well, yeah,
you can't be waving that COVID flag forever.
Well, that's the thing. Now, I mean, can you imagine if that tour doesn't happen this summer? I mean, you got to be kidding me. Two of the smartest people that just stopped it, Sammy did it, Bon Jovi did it. There were certain people that just said, that's it. Cancel the tour, give everybody their money back. Let's be straightforward. You know what? We'll let you know when we're coming back, and we'll do it all over again. That is the absolute fascinating part to the whole thing, is that people are like, no, I want to go to the show. I'm not giving up my ticket. So that's interesting. I thought it was just an interesting factor. Also, John 5 was out promoting his new album, Sinner, which is an excellent record. You guys should check that out. It's brand new from John 5. He talked about these unreleased songs that Dave hasn't put out yet, and the ones that he's dribbling out one at a time, like Giddy Up and Low Res Sunset. And so he said that he doesn't even get notice when they come out. He says, which is funny. He says, but there's a song he can't wait for, which is the Nothing Could Have Stopped Us. We've talked about this before. He says, the song is all about Van Halen. It's my favorite song I've ever done with Dave, and it's beautiful. I don't know why he's not releasing that one. I just can't wait for people to hear it, because it's all about Van Halen. He says, it's absolutely wonderful. And he says, I'm just so happy I had such a cool working vibe with Dave. We can just jump into the studio anytime and knock out some songs. And I'm very lucky, because not a lot of people get that chance with Dave, which is very true. And he said they kind of recorded it, he says, just like the old days. And that was Dave's idea. He wanted a live feel, kind of everybody in the same room in the moment. He says it's one of his fondest memories. So we'll see, Dave, if any more of these songs are going to come out. We got 3 so far. One more and we got an EP.
Well, I think the songs are going to continue to come out in drips and drabs.
Yeah, which is so weird, because if you're really retiring, just release the fucker. I mean, this is insane.
No, I agree. Even if it's only a digital-only album at this point,
yeah.
I mean, just release it as an album. But I think he's just like, all right, I'm going to finish up another one and we're going to put it out. I really don't think he has a desire to do like a whole album thing.
I know. Well, Sammy, on the other hand, Sammy is tapping his toes, and this guy is working hard. Sammy kicked off his residency at the Strat Theater in Las Vegas. They did 3 weekends. He did October 29th and 30th, November 5th and 6th, and November 12th and 13th. I want to really give Sam a hand here, because let me tell you something, Dave. Are you ready for this? The set list was massive. He played over 50 different songs. I really hope he recorded this for a box set or something like that. I really, really do, because I am so stunned at this set list that he did. So now the first night, October 29th, was basically what we talked about for the birthday show. The Good Enough, Rock Candy, 3-Lock Box, Top of the World, Finish What You Started, Best of Both Worlds, Mas Tequila, Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy, Right Now, Why Can't This Be Love, Rock and Roll, There's Only One Way to Rock, Heavy Metal, I Can't Try 55, and Heroes. Very, very similar set to the one that we talked about for the birthday bash, which was in early October. Then October 30th, totally mixed it up. Almost a whole new set. He added a new song called Father Time. He also added All We Need Is an Island, One Sip. He added Pound Cake, Trust Fund Baby, I'll Fall in Love Again, Run Around, Personal Jesus, his covered Depeche Mode, Bad Motor Scooter, When the Levee Breaks, Whole Lotta Rosie. It was unbelievable. Humans Being, and he also did When It's Love, and that was just the second night. Unbelievable, right? Then he comes in November 5th. He's shaking it up again. Even more changes. Sympathy for the Human. I'll Take You There. I Love This Bar, which is a Toby Keith cover. Space Station number 5. High and Dry Again. I falling over. I couldn't believe it. Red, Give to Live, Not Fade Away, which he did with Bob Weir, who was a guest that night. Also did Good Lovin' with Bob Weir, as well as Personal Jesus. 3-Lock Box, and then, he continued with, there's other repeats, like I Can't Drive 55 and Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy. So he goes on to the 4th night, Dave. He's pulling out Red, Voodoo, and then he brought out Tres Gusanos. And he did Love or Money, Babies on Fire, Rock and Roll Weekend. I couldn't believe this. Make It Last, Crossroads. Then he brought out the Wabos, and he did Rock Candy, Little White Lie, Top of the World, 55, and that kind of thing. And did encore with Marching to Mars, and even played Dreams. I was stunned by this.
Wow, that's nice to see him do some of his old school solo stuff with Tres Gusanos.
Absolutely
That's nice.
In shock. Then he brings out, for November 12th, he brings out Rick Springfield. He does a similar set list with a bunch of the songs he did from the birthday show. And then he did Jesse's Girl with Rick Springfield, Red House, which is a cover of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I've Done Everything for You, which is a song Rick Springfield covered that Sammy wrote. And then, of course, Why Can't This Be Love? And then he did cover the Beastie Boys' Fight to Your Right to Party. He did Cabo Wabo. Then the last night, he did another new song called Be Still. And he did a cover of Good Rockin' Tonight. He also did Turn Up the Music. I couldn't believe this. Problem Child by AC/DC. So this was really, really incredible. Like, what a freaking unbelievable turnout. It's incredible, and I was like, wow. So I really hope he does something like this. Now, interesting enough, we talk about the 2 new songs. Be Still. Here's a clip.
I still like a little buzz. Me too. Like my music a bit too loud.